Let me ask you something that sounds simple, but if you really think about it, it becomes almost unbearable to answer. Right now, as you are watching this, are you inside your body or is your body inside you? Don't rush it. Just sit with it for a moment. You might say, of course I'm inside my body, that's obvious. But is it? Because everything you're seeing right now, the room, the screen, the colors, the shapes, none of that is actually out there the way you think it is. Light is bouncing off objects, traveling through space, entering your eyes, triggering electrical signals in your brain. That's all physics. That's all we understand. But what you actually experience is not light. It's not wavelengths. It's not equations. It's a vivid, rich world filled with color, depth, meaning. So, where exactly is that world? Is it out there, or is it being constructed inside your head? And if it's inside your head, then tell me this. Where exactly inside your head is it? Point to it. You can point to your brain, sure. But if we open up your brain, what do we find? We find neurons, electrical signals, chemical reactions. We do not find colors. We do not find sounds. We do not find the feeling of being alive. And yet, here you are, experiencing all of it right now. That's the mystery I want to take you into. Not gently, not safely. I want to drag you straight into the deepest confusion that physics, neuroscience, and philosophy have ever faced. Because once you really see this problem, you can't unsee it. It changes the way you look at reality itself. You see, we've been incredibly successful in science. We've figured out how stars are born, how atoms behave, how time bends near black holes. We've built machines that can look billions of light years away. But when it comes to the one thing you are absolutely certain of, your own experience, we are almost completely clueless. That's not an exaggeration. We do not know why you feel anything at all. We do not know why you are not just a biological machine running in the dark. Think about that. Everything your body does could, in principle, be explained mechanically. Your heart pumps blood. Your lungs exchange oxygen. Your brain processes information. Signals go in, signals come out. You react, you move, you speak. There is nothing in that description that requires experience, nothing that requires an inner life. And yet there is something it feels like to be you. There is a presence, a point of view, a you sitting somewhere behind all of this. But where is that you? Is it a thing? Is it a process? Is it an illusion? And here's where it gets dangerous. Because the moment you start thinking it's an illusion, you run into a problem. Who is being fooled? An illusion still requires someone to experience it. So you can't just explain it away. You can't just say, oh, it's not real. Because the experience itself is the one thing you cannot deny. You could doubt the entire universe, but you cannot doubt that you are having an experience right now. That's the one solid fact. And yet, it's the one thing we cannot explain. Let me push you a little further. Imagine I build a perfect copy of you, atom by atom, neuron by neuron, identical in every way. This copy walks, talks, laughs, answers questions exactly like you. From the outside, there is no difference. Now here's the question. Is there something it feels like to be that copy, or is it just empty inside? You see the problem? There is nothing in physics that tells us whether experience should be there or not. Physics describes structure. It describes behavior. It describes interactions. But it says nothing about inner life, nothing about what it feels like. So how do we know that other people are conscious? We assume it. We infer it. But we cannot prove it. For all you know, everyone else could be a kind of sophisticated machine with no inner experience at all. And the same question applies to animals, to insects, to anything that processes information. Where does experience begin? At what level of complexity does the lights turn on? Or maybe, and this is even stranger, maybe experience is not something that suddenly appears at all. Maybe it's always been there in some form. Maybe even the simplest pieces of matter have some tiny flicker of experience. That idea sounds crazy at first. But think about it. We don't know how to get experience out of non-experience. We don't know how to build it from scratch. So maybe it was never built. Maybe it's a fundamental part of reality, just like space and time. Now, if that's true, then the universe is not just made of particles and forces. It's made of something else too. Something we don't have a good name for. Something that shows up inside you as awareness. And suddenly, the world becomes much stranger than we thought, because now, instead of asking how matter creates mind, we might have to ask how mind and matter fit together at the most basic level. And that is a completely different kind of question. Now let's go deeper, because this is where things start to break in ways that are very hard to repair. You think you are a single, unified self, one person, one stream of consciousness. But your brain is not built that way at all. Your brain is a collection of different systems, each doing its own job, often without talking to the others in any simple way. There are parts of your brain that process vision, parts that process sound, parts that handle memory, emotion, decision-making, and these parts can operate somewhat independently. In fact, there are cases, real medical cases, where the brain is split into two halves, and each half seems to have its own separate awareness. Imagine that. Two centers of experience inside one skull. When the connection between the hemispheres is cut, something very strange happens. The left hand might do something that the right hand tries to stop. One part of the brain knows something that the other part does not. It's as if there are two selves sharing the same body. So which one is you? Or are both of them you? And if two can exist, why not more? Why does your experience feel unified at all? Why does it feel like there is one observer, one point of view? This is what's called the unity problem of consciousness, and it's deeply tied to the binding problem. Your brain processes different features of reality in different places at different times. Color is processed here, shape is processed there, motion somewhere else, sound in another region entirely, and yet you don't experience a fragmented world. You experience a single, seamless reality. A moving, colored object making a sound, all at once, all together. How does that happen? What brings it all into one place? And here's the catch. There is no one place in the brain where everything comes together. There is no central screen where the final picture is displayed. That's just a metaphor. The brain doesn't have a little theater with a tiny observer watching inside. If it did, we would have to ask who is watching that observer, and then who is watching that one, and you end up with an infinite regress that explains nothing. So the unity you feel is not located anywhere obvious. It's not a thing you can point to, and yet it's undeniably there. Now combine this with something even more unsettling. Your sense of self, the feeling that you are a continuous person moving through time, is not as stable as you think. Your memories can be altered. Your personality can change with injury or disease. People with certain brain conditions can lose the sense that their body belongs to them. Others can feel like their thoughts are not their own. So what exactly is the you that you think you are? Is it your memories? But those can change. Is it your body? But your body is constantly replacing its atoms. Is it your brain? But your brain is dynamic, constantly rewiring itself. There is no fixed core, no permanent center, and yet there is still a sense of being someone, a persistent identity. So where does that come from? Is it just a story your brain tells itself? A kind of useful illusion that helps coordinate behavior? Maybe. But again, an illusion still has to be experienced. You cannot escape the fact that there is something it is like to be you. Now let me twist this one more time. Everything you experience is delayed. The signals from your eyes take time to reach your brain. The signals from your ears, your skin, all of it takes time. Your brain then processes that information, integrates it, constructs a model of the world. By the time you become aware of anything, it has already happened. You are always living slightly in the past.
and yet it feels immediate. It feels like you are right there in real time, interacting with the world. That feeling is constructed. It's a kind of controlled hallucination that your brain generates to make sense of incoming data. But if your entire experience is a constructed model, then what is the real world like? Not the world as you see it, but the world as it exists independently of your perception. Physics tells us it's very different. No colors, no sounds, no smells, just fields, particles, interactions, a kind of abstract mathematical structure, and somehow from that structure, your vivid inner world emerges or appears to emerge, and we do not know how, not even close. So now you are standing at a very strange crossroads. On one side, you have the physical description of reality, precise, mathematical, incredibly successful. On the other side, you have your direct experience, rich, immediate, undeniable, and the two do not fit together in any clear way. They don't contradict each other, but they don't explain each other either. It's like having two maps of the same territory that don't.
Overlap. And the question is, are we missing something fundamental? Some piece of the puzzle that would connect these two views? Or is the gap itself telling us that our current way of thinking is incomplete? That maybe, just maybe, the universe is not just physical in the way we've been imagining. And if that's true, then the implications are enormous. Because it means that understanding consciousness is not just a side problem. It's not just something for neuroscientists to figure out. It could require a completely new way of thinking about reality itself, a new framework, a new set of principles. And if we ever find that, it might change everything we think we know, not just about the mind, but about the universe as a whole. Now, I want you to do something even more uncomfortable. Not physically uncomfortable, intellectually uncomfortable. I want you to question the one thing you have never seriously questioned before. The feeling that you are the one in control. Right now, you feel like you are choosing to watch this. You feel like you are deciding to keep listening. You feel like your thoughts belong to you, that they arise because you direct them. But let me ask you this very carefully. Before a thought appears in your mind, do you know what that thought is going to be? Try it. Decide that your next thought will be something specific. Maybe you say, okay, I will think of a red apple. Fine. But notice what just happened. The intention to think of the apple appeared first, and then the image followed. But where did that intention come from? Did you choose it, or did it just show up? You see, every time you look closely, you find the same strange pattern. Thoughts appear, decisions appear, even the feeling of choosing appears. But you are never ahead of them. You are always receiving them. It's as if your mind is generating outputs, and you are watching them arrive, claiming ownership after the fact. And this is not just philosophy. There have been experiments, very precise ones, where scientists measure brain activity before a person becomes aware of making a decision. And what they find is unsettling. The brain shows signs of a decision being made before the person reports the conscious intention to act. In other words, your brain seems to decide before you do. Now stop and think about what that means. If your decisions are being prepared before you're aware of them, then what exactly is the role of your conscious self? Are you the driver, or are you just the narrator, telling the story of what has already been decided? This is where the ground starts to slip. Because if you are not in control of your thoughts, not in control of your decisions in the way you thought, then what are you? Are you just along for the ride, a witness, a passive observer of a process that unfolds on its own? And yet, it doesn't feel that way. It feels like you are acting, choosing, deciding. That feeling is incredibly strong. But strength of feeling is not the same as truth. The earth feels flat when you stand on it, but it isn't. So maybe the feeling of control is another construction, another useful illusion. But again, we hit the same wall. An illusion still needs an experiencer. There still has to be something that is aware of the illusion. So we haven't explained anything away. We've only made the mystery deeper. Now let me take this one step further, because this is where it becomes almost impossible to hold on to your usual intuitions. Imagine that every thought you have, every decision you make, is the result of physical processes in your brain, neurons firing, chemicals flowing, patterns evolving according to the laws of physics. If that's true, then in principle, if we knew the exact state of your brain and the laws governing it, we could predict everything you will think and do, every choice, every word, every action, completely determined. Now you might resist this. You might say, no, there must be some freedom, some unpredictability. And yes, there is quantum uncertainty at very small scales, but randomness is not the same as freedom. A random decision is not a free decision. It's just unpredictable. So whether your brain is deterministic or partly random, it doesn't give you the kind of control you think you have. Either your actions are determined by prior states, or they are influenced by randomness. In neither case are you the ultimate source. And yet, here you are, feeling like you are the author of your life, feeling like you could have done otherwise. That feeling is so central to how we live that it's almost impossible to let go of. But if we're being honest, if we follow the logic all the way through, it becomes very hard to justify. And now we're in a very strange position, because the same system that gives rise to your thoughts, your decisions, your sense of self, that system is also the one trying to understand itself. Your brain is trying to explain your brain, and that's a bit like a book trying to read itself, or a camera trying to take a picture of itself without a mirror. There may be limits to what it can do. There may be aspects of the system that cannot be fully captured from within. And this brings us to a very important possibility. Maybe the problem of consciousness is not just hard because we haven't figured it out yet. Maybe it's hard because of the kind of minds we have. Maybe our way of thinking, our concepts, our language, our intuitions are not suited to solving it, just like a dog cannot understand calculus. Not because calculus is mysterious, but because the dog's brain is not built for that kind of abstraction. So maybe we are in the same position. Maybe there are truths about consciousness that our current minds simply cannot grasp. Now that sounds pessimistic, but it might also be a clue. Because throughout the history of science, whenever we hit a wall, it's often because we are using the wrong framework. We are asking the wrong kind of questions. Before Einstein, people thought of space and time as separate. Before quantum mechanics, people thought of particles as little billiard balls. In each case, progress came from changing the way we think, not just adding more data. So what if we need a similar shift here? What if the problem is not that we lack information, but that we are trying to fit consciousness into a framework that cannot accommodate it? Maybe consciousness is not something that emerges from matter in the way we usually imagine. Maybe it's not something that can be reduced to simpler parts. Maybe it's something more fundamental. Or maybe, and this is even more radical, maybe the distinction between mind and matter is itself part of the problem. Maybe they are not two separate things that need to be connected. Maybe they are two aspects of a deeper reality that we don't yet understand. Now, I know this sounds abstract, but let me ground it a bit. Think about electricity and magnetism. For a long time, they were thought to be completely different phenomena. Electricity was about charges. Magnetism was about magnets. They seemed unrelated. But then Maxwell came along and showed that they are actually two aspects of a single electromagnetic field. What looked like two separate things were actually one thing viewed in different ways. So maybe something similar is happening here. Maybe what we call physical processes and what we call conscious experience are not two separate domains that need to be linked, but two perspectives on the same underlying reality. If that's true, then the reason we can't find consciousness in the brain is not because it's not there, but because we are looking for it in the wrong way. We are looking for it as if it were another physical object, another process, another measurable quantity. But maybe it doesn't show up that way. Maybe it shows up only from the inside. And if that's the case, then science as we currently practice it, objective, third-person, measurement-based, might be missing half of the picture. Now let's turn this into something even more unsettling, because so far We've been talking about your experience as if it belongs to you, as if it's tied to your brain, your body, your perspective. But what if that assumption is also not as solid as it seems? What if the boundary between your consciousness and the rest of reality is not as clear as you think? Right now, it feels like there is a clear line inside this body, your thoughts, your feelings, your awareness. Outside, everything else. The world, other people, objects. But that boundary is inferred. It's constructed. Your brain builds a model of your body. It integrates signals from your senses, touch, vision, proprioception, and it creates the feeling that this body is you. But that feeling can be manipulated. There are experiments where people are made to feel that a fake hand is their own. The brain is tricked by synchronizing visual and tactile signals. You see a rubber hand being touched, you feel your real hand being touched at the same time, and after a while your brain adopts the rubber hand as part of your body. It feels like you. So if your sense of ownership over your own body can be altered that easily, what does that say about the boundary of the self? It suggests that the self is not a fixed entity, but a dynamic construction, a model that can expand, contract, and even be reassigned. Now take that idea and push it further. If the brain can incorporate a fake hand into the self, could it, in principle, incorporate other things? Tools, objects, even other people? In some sense, it already does. When you use a tool skillfully, like a tennis racket or a car, it starts to feel like an extension of your body. You don't think about the tool as separate. It becomes part of your action system. So where does you end? At your skin? At the limits of your nervous system? Or at the limits of what your brain can model as part of itself? And now comes the really strange question. If the sense of self is constructed, and if it can shift and expand, then is there any fundamental reason why it has to be confined to a single brain? Could there be forms of consciousness that are distributed, shared, or overlapping? This sounds like science fiction, but think about it carefully. The only reason you associate your consciousness with your brain is because that's where the processes that correlate with your experience are happening. But correlation is not explanation. We know that brain activity is linked to experience, but we do not know why or how that link works. So we cannot rule out the possibility that consciousness in some form is more widespread than we think. Maybe what your brain does is not create consciousness, but shape it, filter it, focus it, like a lens focusing light. The light is already there, but the lens determines how it appears. If that's true, then your individual experience might be a localized pattern in a much larger field of awareness, and now the universe starts to look very different. Instead of a dead, mechanical system that somehow produces pockets of consciousness, it becomes something that has an intrinsic experiential aspect at every level. Not necessarily in the way you experience things, not with thoughts and language and identity, but in some more basic, primitive form. Now, I'm not saying this is the answer. I'm saying this is one of the possibilities that opens up when we take the problem seriously, because the more we examine our assumptions, the more they start to dissolve. The idea of a fixed self, the idea of clear boundaries, the idea of control, the idea that consciousness is just a byproduct of brain activity. None of these ideas hold up as firmly as they seem at first glance, and that leaves us in a very unusual position. We know something is happening, your experience is undeniable, but the frameworks we use to explain the world do not seem to capture it, so we are forced to consider the possibility that something fundamental is missing. Not a small detail, not a minor correction, something deep, something structural, and this is where the real opportunity lies. Because if we can figure out what that missing piece is, if we can find a way to integrate consciousness into our understanding of reality in a coherent way, it could lead to a transformation as profound as any in the history of science. It could change how we think about life, about intelligence, about the universe itself. But to get there, we have to be willing to let go of some very basic intuitions. We have to be willing to question the things that feel most obvious, and that is not easy. Because those intuitions are not just ideas, they are the foundation of how we experience the world. Challenging them can feel like losing your footing, like the ground is disappearing beneath you. But sometimes that's exactly what needs to happen before you can see something new. And right now, whether you realize it or not, you are standing right at that edge. Now we arrive at the point where most people instinctively turn back, because what comes next does not just challenge your understanding of the world, it challenges the way you experience being a self inside that world. Up until now, we've been carefully pulling apart your assumptions, that you are in control, that your thoughts belong to you, that your experience is located somewhere inside your brain, that there is a clear boundary between you and everything else. And each time, those assumptions started to crack. Not completely shatter, but crack just enough to make you uneasy. Now I want to do something different. I want to show you what happens if we stop trying to repair those cracks and instead follow them all the way through. Because if we do that honestly, without rushing to patch things up, we are led to a very strange possibility, one that sounds absurd at first but becomes harder and harder to dismiss the longer you sit with it. The possibility is this: what if the thing you call you is not the center of experience at all? What if it is just one of the many things appearing inside experience? Right now, it feels like you are the observer, the one looking out at the world, the one listening to these words. But look more closely. You can see your hands, your body, your surroundings. You can hear sounds. You can feel sensations. And you can also notice your thoughts. They appear just like sounds appear. They come and go. The same is true for emotions. They rise, they change, they fade. Even your sense of identity, the feeling of this is me, that too can be noticed. It is something that shows up in your awareness. And here's the key question. If all of these things, sensations, thoughts, feelings, identity, are appearing in your experience, then what exactly is the observer? Where is it? Can you find it? Not as an idea, not as a concept, but as something directly present. Now, I know this can sound abstract, so let me bring it back to something immediate. Right now, you are hearing these words. That experience is happening. You don't have to do anything to make it happen. It's just there. At the same time, there may be thoughts about what I'm saying. Agreement, disagreement, confusion, curiosity. Those thoughts are also just appearing. You didn't choose them in advance. They showed up. And the same is true for the feeling of being you listening to this. That feeling is present, but it's also just another part of the experience. So instead of thinking of yourself as a separate entity inside your head, try to see the whole thing as one continuous process. One unfolding. No clear center, no fixed boundary, just experience happening. And if you can glimpse that, even for a moment, it changes the nature of the problem we started with. Because now, instead of asking, how does the brain create consciousness, we might ask a different question. Why does consciousness appear as if it is located in a self? Why does awareness take on the shape of a subject-object structure? Why does it feel like there is a me in here and a world out there, when in direct experience everything is simply appearing together? That is a very different kind of question, and it may be closer to the truth.